Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence. Today I want us to talk a little bit about yesterday, right? Because yesterday was a really bad day, right? I just didn't have a good time of it, right? I feel like yesterday I really wanted to make a video on mental health, depression, that kind of thing, right? And I felt like I had all the words to say it. I just didn't have the energy, the creative muscle to actually say those words. And now today I've woken up with all this energy and I want to talk about it, and yet the words have gone, right? So how do you grapple with that? How do you grapple with the fact that when you're in the thick of it, right, you know exactly how to convey what's going on because you've spent so long in your own head trying to figure out what it is for yourself, right? And then the second that you get the opportunity to say it in a way that makes sense, you no longer have those words. It's not fair, right? For instance, I tried to get on therapy a couple of years ago, right? I wasn't having a great time, and I thought maybe therapy would help, right? So I signed up for therapy, right? It's a 2-month waiting list. After 2 months, I was all right, right? I was fine. Mentally, I was quite chirpy and happy. So I didn't need the therapy anymore. So it was like, great. So I basically had to sort myself out, and therapy was absolutely useless. I didn't get any therapy in the end because I didn't need it, right? So you kind of have that where when you have the opportunity for help, you don't need it. And when you need the help, there is no opportunity for that help, right? And I think the same thing can be said for this, where yesterday I was in a bit of a state and I was trying to conjure the words, and so conjure the energy to say the words, but today I have the energy and now I'm trying to conjure up the words, right? I tried making a video earlier on mental health and I felt like I didn't quite tap into exactly what it was that I wanted to do, so I ended up scrapping the video. So why is it that we have this system where it, not a systematic thing, but in terms of the brain, where when we are at our most capable, we don't have the language and we don't have the ideas? I have a suspicion that it's because we don't have those ideas and because we don't have the answers to our mental health struggles right now that we are more capable of being mentally fine, because we're not thinking so much about it. The more you dwell and the more that you wallow in your self-pity and your misery and your unhappiness, the worse it's going to get, right, at the end of the day. Because look, we've all got problems, we're all sad, right? None of us are unique in that, right? And the only difference is how sincere the emotional side of that is and how sincere the practical side of that is. When I say sincere, I probably mean more how serious it is. For instance, someone living in, I don't know, a tribe in the Congo that's getting overrun by the M23 rebellions, right, is probably having a worse time of it practically than someone living in America who's, you know, a bit depressed. But that's not to say that person living in Africa might not be mentally decent in the brain. They might not have depression or whatever, but that person in America, you know, has better practical surroundings and stuff. They're not living in absolute poverty. They're not, you know, dealing with, you know, insurgencies in their neighborhood. But at the same time, they're depressed, and this person isn't. How come, right? Well, I don't have the answer for you, because at the end of the day, I don't think there is an easy answer for that, because some people are just different from others. Some people are more liable to overthink and to dwell themselves in self-doubt and sorrow. And some people are more averse are more liable to just push through and not have any sense of brain within there. And I'm not saying that they're stupid people by any means. I'm saying that they don't have this almost disability of being loaded with thoughts about things that they don't need to think about, right? Because if you're overthinking, what does overthinking mean, right? Let's break it down, because thinking is trying to get to the bottom of something, right? And if you're overthinking, it's like you've gotten to the bottom and you're still digging further and further and further, and you're just going to keep going. You're never going to get to the bottom. You're just going to keep going forever. You know, there's no end to your quest for enlightenment. So why don't you be happy with the amount of light that you've got? You don't need more. There's only so bright that you can shine the torch before you blind yourself, right? Do you want to do that? No. So what is it that we can do in order to say the words that we need to say? Well, I find journaling to be a really useful tool. I love journaling. It's one of my favourite sort of hobbies. I do it quite a lot, right? I found out that I've written about 500,000 words, right? So I'm going to go find my last journal. I'm going to see if I'm comfortable sort of talking about it, right? Okay, I found one here that is, this is the dream, right? So it says, I had this long dream where I met Steve Coogan and we walked back from one place in London to another place in London, right? And the thing I think that's important for this is that I know that, because I'm a big fan of like Alan Partridge and Saxondale and stuff, so I would say I'm a fan of Steve Coogan's work, but I also know that Steve Coogan doesn't particularly like, like people coming up to him going, oh, I'm a big fan of your work and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of understand where he's coming from with regards to that. I get all of that. I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, but I understand what he's saying with that. And so the dream was essentially me and him having an exchange of ideas around this, because it was when I was starting to get really popular on YouTube and I was starting to get my own following and I was starting to get recognized in public myself, and I was coming to terms with that, grappling with that, and how did I feel about that? Do I like it, or do I feel like it's an invasion of privacy? And I didn't know the answers to any of that. So there's one point in this where it says that, we looked out over a field, and in real life, I know that this field isn't particularly interesting. It's just some trees at the back of it. But in the dream, it was almost like this science fiction kind of utopic kind of thing, right? With like the bright sunshine and like dolphins swimming in the air and all this sort of stuff, right? And apparently I turned and looked at him and I said, does it actually look like that? Or is it just the cameras making it like that? And I'm sure I got an answer, but I don't know what that answer is. Whatever that answer was would have been quite profound, but then I don't remember it. I think that kind of comes back around to either having the words and not having the mouth, or having the mouth but having no words, right? I am now in a position where I can convey what happened in this dream, but I don't remember it, right? The only reason I'm even able to recall this at all is because I've written it down. And I've barely written anything down because, you forget a dream after about 5 minutes of being awake. So I've clearly woken up and immediately gone straight for it. I mean, there's spelling mistakes all over this because I've literally just woken up, right? And I think it kind of comes back around to, this whole idea of trying to get across a serious emotional struggle, right? When you're emotionally struggling, it's incredibly difficult. You can't bring the energy to do it. You can't just sit and talk and ramble and get to some kind of epiphany. It just isn't going to happen. And when you're in, like for instance, now I'm really, really happy and stuff, I'm also unable to get to that epiphany because I can't tap into that sad energy. And when I had the sad energy, I couldn't have gotten the motivation to set the camera up and do this. And if I did, the video would have been terrible. It would have been incredibly quiet. I would have been all over the place. I wouldn't have made any sense, right? And the only reason I'm making a bit of sense here is because we're talking about mental health rather than talking about mental health itself, right? It's an incredibly difficult struggle to actually talk about something in a way that can actually get to the bottom of it. You can talk around an issue forever, and then once you get into it, you can pass through it, but you can never erase the entire issue and cover all the ground, because the further, it's like how you can't measure the coastline, right? Because you can always go further in, like fractals. You can never get to the bottom. You will always travel and never find, right? So that's pretty much going to be the video. I just wanted to make this as a quick sort of little idea on that I want to expand on in the future, on how mental health is incredibly important to one, spread awareness of it, obviously, but in a way that isn't, like, mental health is important, we've got to spread awareness of it. I'd like to get to some more serious themes without, sounding like your typical, like, YouTube advert or like some poster in your workplace going, you should talk to your therapist about stuff. It's like, yeah, we all know that there's problems in the world. We all have issues with the brain, and we all have like struggles in life, and we all have our own various unhappinesses. And there's no universal answer to those. We all have to work it out for ourselves. We all have to figure it out for ourselves, and we're not going to come to any final conclusion. We're not going to solve our mental health struggles without some kind of external help, right? And at the same time, we're not going to find that external help if we don't solve our mental health issues. So you need to constantly do a little bit of a zigzag where you solve a little bit so that you can help yourself a little bit, and then make it easier for yourself next time you have a mental health struggle, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So you want to continually try and rise yourself up rather than continually push yourself down. And finally, I would like to just say, be kinder to yourself, right? Just in general. I know that they all say that on these mental health topic fucking videos. Be kind to yourself. Stop being so mean to yourself. It's like, shut the fuck up. But they're not wrong. They are correct. So do be nicer to yourself. Try, at least. Or at least try and be aware of when you're not being nice to yourself and take that into account. You know, rather than having to force some kind of positivity on yourself, just be aware of when you're being overly negative for no reason. You can still be more negative if you want, if you're truly enjoying that, but just recognize what you're doing. And that's going to be it from me. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what other sort of aspects of mental health would you like me to talk about? Because it's a topic I really want to get into. I think it's important to talk about it. And I'd like to cure some people's sort of, I want to cure some people's mental health. What kind of sentence was that? I don't know. I just want to, you know, if I can chirp up someone's fucking Wednesday afternoon, I'd call that a job well done. And I'd like to do that. And I'm happy to keep coming out to parks and talking about this if it means that we can make more people's Wednesdays a little bit nicer. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.